let's restart. Okay, so let's just look at this Mishnah. One of the brothers that was the executor on the state. He was the one who was running things after the father died. And he had documents, shtaris, that had his name on it, that said that, this property was sold. Let's say this brother's name was Reuven. These properties were sold to Reuven. And he said, I got them in my own personal capacity and not as a representative of the estate. And he says, it was like I won the lottery. It came from my grandmother, but nothing to do with this Yerusha. So let's just quickly see the Rashbam, because the next question of the Gemara will make more sense with this explanation. So we say, I'm sorry, let's just one more line. Rav says that this executor, if he wants to argue that these stars belong to him, he's the one who has to bring a raya. And Shmuel says, Allah achal lahavi raya. No, he says the burden of proof is on the brothers. Since it says this brother's name, it says Reuven's name on the stars, they have to take it away from him. He's the most. So let's see the Rashbam. Yoitzin al Shmoi. So the Rashbam shebeshmoi nichtavu shu lakach behilva. That this is, it says the name of this brother, that he's the one who bought this property, or that he lent money and he's the one who's owned the money. Shalihain. So to Rashbam, vein lachi chelik behem. My brothers have nothing to do with this. So naflu hamamaynis shel vesi v'kanisi ben karkoi salalu mibeis aviima. This monies or this karka came to me from my grandmother, who was from. I had a different mother than all these other brothers, and I was the only one who yarshed it. You're not yarshim in this. Helkach nakat avi ima the ilubes abba kulin yarshim b'shava shabachan and avaskina. So yarshim until avim yachad. Little ze yasim is that helkach. No, they don't have any. If we're from the father, they would all be equal yarshim. But little ze yasim is that. Vehelkach my ayin loy mamen zu levadei im lo yarshim ima. And where would this person have money if not for the fact that he got his mother coin she'enim b'nei am echas? They don't have the same mother. Rashbam continues, Olav lahavi raya sha'amam and shaloi. This executor has to bring a raya. Avol b'shiksuvan ashtaros b'shmoi. Even though the star just says that Ruvain bought this property or Ruvain lent this money, the kivin shahayahu levadi noisav and noisav menachasim. Since he was the only one who was the executor, who was actually dealing with the property, sheniftavu al shmai, it was written in his name, where there's no allowance even giving. They're not separated that each person gets a certain amount of money from the property. Since we have no way of explaining where he got money except for to get from this Yerusha from his father, we don't have any reason to. We can't. It's the Gemara. What the Rashbam is struggling with is there's a star that says his name on it, and why are we assuming that the money came from this estate? Why can't he have his own property? So he says Rashbam explains we're talking about a case where we have they're all poor kids. They're all 18-year-old schnooks, and they have no other money. And the only money that's around is the money from the Yerusha. So there's karka. It says that the Empire State Building belongs to Reuven. There's a star that says that he bought the Empire State Building. He's been working babysitting jobs. Where does he get the money to buy it? And he claims, you should know, my mother. I don't have the same mother as my brothers. She had an uncle, a grandfather who I got a Yerusha from him, and that's how I bought it. So that's his taina, but that's not a likely story. So we say, so he can't, since he can't say that it's my money, that I got it from an unlikely source, since the only practical way he could have gotten the money, according to Rav, is that he took it from the Yerusha, that's the most likely thing. Even though it says his name on it, the reason why it says his name because he was representing the estate. So therefore, this brother Reuven, who was the executor of the estate, has to bring a raya that it was his property, that it was actually his and not in his capacity as an executor. Okay, now we're going to skip to Amud Beis and Amud Beis by the two dots. Amr of Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Lo shanu ela de'ein chalukim bisasim. This that we said, that Rav said, that this brother, even though his name is on the shtaris, he has to provide a raya that it's really his. That's only where they haven't already made an agreement that the brothers are saying, listen, dear departed dad's estate is $100 million. It produces $10 million of interest a year, and there's two brothers, so we each get $5 million a year to spend. So in that case, where they're splitting up the income that they could spend, they each get a certain amount of money to live off of. So then he could have used that money. That would be the explanation of where he bought these properties. So Rav Chisda says that which Rav says that this executor has to bring a right. That's where there's no reasonable way to explain where the money came from. But in a case where they were getting an allowance, where they were getting a portion of the estate to spend, so he could have bought something on his own. So he has a reasonable explanation. Therefore, we would not say that he has to bring a raya. Avachalukim bisasan. But if they do get an allowance to live on, ema misasa kimitz, he was very miserly. He saved up his pennies and he used that money to buy the karka, and therefore it belongs to him. So he said, this brother has to bring a raya. What kind of raya does he have to bring? Rava amaraya be'edim. He has to bring a regular. He has to bring edim that will say that he used his own money to get this property. It wasn't from the estate. Risheshes amaraya b'kiyam ashtar. Risheshes says the way he brings a raya is by this. There's a star that says his name on it. He brings the star to Bezdin, and Bezdin says that these are the correct signatures on the star, which is interesting. That's my assumption would have been before this Gemara, that when you make a kiyum star, all the Bezdin has to look at is whether the signatures are the people who are said. They're like a notary. They're saying that these are the people who are signed, those are the actual signatures. The Rashbam explains they do more than that. They will first check that the star is what it purports to be. So they would look into it before Bezdin would be Mekayim it and make sure that he is the actual owner of the star. So that's the raya, but there's a lower level than Adam. You just have to have that Bezdin looked into it and approved the star. Amalei Rav Nachman, Ha Rav, Ha Shmuel. We have this machlokes between Rav and Shmuel about, like we said before, whether the executor, the brother who's the executor, has to be Mekayim the star, or if he has to bring a raya, or the other brothers have to bring a raya to take it away from him. Ha Rav of Rav Sheish. We have the second machlokes about what kind of raya does he bring? Does he have to bring Edim, or could just have it at Bukim Bezin? Mar Kaman Svirle. Who do you hold like? Amalei, I know Masnisi Adan. I have a Mishnah, I have a Brisa. The Tanya. This exact case that Rav and Shmuel argued about. One of the brothers who was the executive, and there were shtaros and rayas, contracts of sale and contracts of loans that he had in his hand that said his name on it. And he said it's mine. And he claimed that it came from his mother's family. All of lahavi raya. It's on the executor. This brother has to bring the raya. So that's like Rav. And similarly, a similar din. This is talking about not a brother. Before the first case, machlokes Rav and Shmuel in the first price was talking about a brother. This is talking about the mother when her husband dies, and she's now taking care of the Yisaimim, and she's taking care of the money in the meantime. And she has stars in her name, and she says, in her case, we don't have to say it's Beis Avi Ima, because it could be she could have different Yarshim than her children, certainly. Allah Haviraya. She has to bring a raya. Again, so this is the same din as Rav, but in the case of a mother who's the administrator, as opposed to a brother. My v'chein. In fact, why are we adding on the second din of the mother? So Isha keeping the shvichala milsa. Maybe because for a mother, this is like a pure chesed. Everyone's going to praise her. The Amri Katarcha Kami Yasmi Legazlam Yasmi. Since everyone's going to praise her for taking care of the assignment, it's not really her job, and she's doing a chesed by watching over them. So therefore, we could assume she wouldn't steal from them, and if she claims that this money is really hers, then we can believe her. Kamashmalan that no, again, it's still her. A person who's the administrator of a state has to back it up with receipts. They can't claim that a star that comes in their own name is really their own money. Okay, so now we're going back to the Mishnah on Daf Mem Beis. The Mishnah on Daf Mem Beis had said, all the people who can have a cheskes gimel shanim, and then it says, this is all by someone who's trying to make a chazaka to prove that it's his. Someone who's receiving a matana, or brothers who are trying to make a kinyan to say, you get this and I get that, or someone who's trying to get something from Hefker, from Nichse Ager, no, the God of parts koshu harezu chazaka. As long as you make a chazaka, some type of improvement, you made you closed up a door, you opened up an opening, you made some type of improvement in the property, that's a chazaka. Excuse me, sorry, there's someone at the door. I'm just gonna get up. Thank you so much. Paid for already? Huh? Paid for? I apologize. Our breakfast just arrived, the delivery. Supposed to come in a half hour. So where was I? Yeah. So in the Mishnah, we said that there's another type, as the Gemara is going to explain, there's a different type of chazaka. You're going to make a chazaka where it's a kinyan, where it causes someone to be kind of not like we were talking at the beginning of the Mishnah of cheskes shalosh shanim, which is someone who claims that this was sold to him and he has a raya. Zak the Gemara. That's quoting from the Mishnah. Says, what are you saying? All these, the matana and the ger, he's making chazaka. He's been kind of the kinyan with the chazaka. So where until now, what we're talking about? We're talking about a chazaka that comes with a taina, meaning that you make a taina that it was sold to you, and you bring the chazaka as a raya. Where the meicher says I didn't sell it, and the lekech says I did buy it, and I'm having cheskes shalosh. What the Mishnah quoted, the lemikni ba'alma who, where he's coming to be kaina. No, God of a parts koshu harezu chazaka. If you make any kind of chazaka, that's insufficient. Tani Rav Ashi, the kedushin debei Levi. He said in these kedushin debei Levi, which Rashbam explains is a type of safra, I think he says, of the Bei Levi. No God of a parts koshu befanav harezu chazaka. He has a version of the Mishnah that if someone closed, or he made a fence, or he locked it up, or he opened up a little bit, if he did it in front of the person who he's trying to make the kinyan from, right? If Reuven bought something from Shimon, if he was no god of befaretz in front of Shimon, harezu chazak. Saktumar b'fun of in shaloi b'fun of loy. It's mashma only if Shimon is standing there. Is this chazaka a good chazaka to be kind of? Amar Rava hachikam b'fun of loitzarch lamemel leich chazekukni. What the Gemara means to say is when you're making a kinyan of God or parrots, no God of a parrots, kolshu, a small, like where he's not making a massive, he's not making a big change, he's making a small change. If in order for that to be a kinyan, he has to say lech hazekukni, it has to have an addition that the makne Shimon says go ahead and be kind. But if it's in front of Shimon, it's not necessary. That is a good kinyan, right? A chazaka means that you're using the property, and that, right? It's very different than we think. Like, what are the options of being kind of karka? You could either make a kinyan kasef, or a kinyan chazaka, or a kinyan of shtar. Kasef, shtar, and chazaka. Now, kasef and shtar, we understand these are legal mechanisms. You hand over money, that makes a kinyan. It causes the kinyan to take place. Or you hand over a shtar. A shtar is very understandable. Shtar is the ultimate legal mechanism. But making a chazaka, being machzik, is it's a demonstration of ownership. So it's going to work differently. Now, there's a couple of things that you could add on to it. So one thing you could do is if Shimon says, go be machzik, go ahead, you make the chazaka. So then when the other person is no god above heart's kosher, he makes a small act of chazaka, that's sufficient. But if Shimon in this case doesn't say lechazekukni, a replacement for that could be is just if Shimon standing there and the person is acting as if it's his. That's also a second way of making it his. So that's the way we understand. So Rav is saying the fun of leitzorch lechazekukni, instead of saying lechazekukni, it could be in front of him. He could be kind of with the kinyan chazak. Shaloi b'fun of the Gemara continues. But if the makna, the seller, is not there, then he has to give instructions. You go ahead and make a chazak. Boy Rav Masna hayech. Boy Rav matana hayech. How do you make? What's a din by a matana? Maybe this is only by a kinyan, but maybe a matana you can't make a chazaka without lechazekukni. Can you be kind of with just no god of a paretz kosher, where it's just in front of the kind of Amar Shmuel mighty boile laaba. What is Rav asking? Hashtu ma mocha de koyov lezuzi yamal lechazuknei in loy loy. When someone buys a property, so he's going to give money, even though he's not being kind in this case with kesef. He's not handing over the money, but he's going to provide money. He's paying for it. So that itself is almost like saying lechazekukni, right? If he's getting money, he's obviously agreeing to the kinyan. And we're saying even so, if you say go ahead and be kind, then it's a kinyan. But if not. Matana lekol shekain. Certainly, a matana where there's no the person who's giving it, the makna, is not receiving anything. You're going to need that he should say lechazekukni in order for the chazaka to be a kinyan. But Rav disagrees with this. Man the yov matana ba'ayin yov yov. Someone who gives a matana, he gives it with a full heart, so he wants it to be nikna. Masha ein kain, like we said, we had the other day. There's nobody who sells anything without being forced to do it by the exigencies of his circumstances. He needs the money, but he doesn't really want to sell. No one wants to ever give up karka. So even though he's getting paid, maybe over there he's not ba'ayin yafa, and there he has to express lechazekukni, go be kind in order for it to be a kinyan. So Gemara Kama Kolshu. What does it mean that he's kind of with a null god of a parts Kolshu? Because Shmuel, it's like Shmuel, the Amar Shmuel, Gadar Veshlimila Asara. If someone made a fence and he brought it up to 10, right? If the person who's making a kinyan, right, the first thing is null god of a parts, he was Gadar, he made a fence around the property. It means he fixed up the fence, then he got it to Asara, which is the shear of a fence. Or he made an opening, a doorway that you can go in and out of. Harezu chazaka. That's a chazaka. Zaktamar. Hi gadar hechi dami. What does it mean that he made a gather? He made a fence. If you say it was before, there was already 10 tvachim, and it still is. I'm sorry. Yeah, it still is that you can't go in. It was 10, and he made it to 12. My Ovid, what has he done? It was already a fence. He hasn't really done anything. So rather you'll say it was only 5 tvachim, and he made it up to 10. So until now, you can jump over the fence, and now you can't. Tuva of it. Then why is it a kolshu? That's a full-fledged making a chazaka. So what are you saying? It's a chazaka kolshu. You need minimal chazaka. This is a full-fledged chazaka. We're talking about at the beginning, you could go in easily. It was only, let's say, it was only 1 tefach. It was just a marker, and he made it up to 9. So a person could jump over it, but he has to clamber over it. So he's made something that's enough to make it that's a kinyan kolshu, a chazak kolshu. The Gemara asks the same question about a pirza. Hi pirza hechidami. What does it mean that he opened it up? If you say they already could get in, it was already only a 9 tefach fence, and he made it down to 5. My oven, what has he done? Just like you can go before and you can go now. That's not a kolshahu. If it was 10 and he made it. It was 15 and he made it down to 12, but people still can't get in. I'm sorry, it was 15 and he made it down to 5. He made it they go in. That's not a kolshu. The beginning they could go easily. I'm sorry, they go with difficulty. It was 9 tvachim high, and he made it down to 1. If he put a stone into a breach, the way the one understands it, there was water dripping into the field, and he blocked it from destroying the field. Or natal trav ha'il, or if there was water ready in the field, and he took away a rock that was blocking the water from draining out. Harez a chazaka. That's a chazaka. So Gemara, my nasan my natal. What did he put there, and what did he take? Ilim nasan shrar v'sachar maya mina. Natal shrar v'afik maya mina. If it is like we described, that he put down a rock and he stopped the water from coming in and destroying the field, or he took the tzrar and he caused the water to drain out. In order for someone to be kinder with a kinyan chazaka, it has to be that you benefited. It can't be that you were just doing something that anyone would do. The din there's a din of hashavas abed. If you see someone's property is being destroyed, you mechayiv to go help it. So it could be understood that the reason why the owner didn't complain is because you're doing the mitzvah. You're going to save this field from damage. So that's not a chazaka. Ella nasan shrar the tzamid la maya. Talking about where he put down a stone and he trapped the water on the field to irrigate the field. So it was benefiting the field. Natal shrar the ervach la maya. Or he took away a rock and he let the water get in to irrigate the field. So both of these are benefits of the field and not keeping away a damage. Those are chazakas that the owner would normally protest. Let's try to do a little bit more. You have 2 fields with a boundary in between them. I don't know if you remember, we've come across these boundaries, these borders. It was like a raised section that in some cases, the Rishus Harabim, people who who walked through the fields would take it for their own as a Rishus Harabim, which is not really negating this Gemara, but we've had the physical explanation of how it works. That's the way. Instead of having fences between fields, they had little raised bumps. There one between the fields. If the Knoisa, we're talking about over here, where let's say a ger died, or there were sadis that were hefker, and someone was machzik in one of the two fields that were next to each other. He was no god of apartments in one of the two fields. Kana, he's kind. Liknus oisav escharata. If rather than just having in mind to be kind of field A, he also had in mind he wants to be kind of field B with the kinyan with the chazaka that he made on field A. He wanted also to apply to field B that's on the other side of this meitzer of this border. It doesn't work for the second one. It only works for the one that he actually made a chazaka. Liknus as charata, if he had in mind, he made a null god of a parts. He made a chazaka in order to be kind of this hefker in field A, but he only had in mind to be kind of field B. He wasn't kind of anything because he didn't make a chazaka in field B, and he didn't have in mind to be kind of field A. You can't be kind of something without having in mind to be kind of. Boy Rav Zera, what happened if he made a chazaka in field A, and he had in mind not just to be kind of field A and field B, but he also had in mind to be kind of the border in between them. Now, do we say that the meitzer is part of the property? So it's all one thing. That it's only because there's a meitzer in between the two fields. That's why tries to make chazaka in field A, it doesn't work on field B. But if he's intending to get the meitzer, the border in between them as well, that takes away what distinguishes between the fields. He's having it all in mind together. Or do we say no? That's not the way it is. It's two separate fields, but the border makes them into two separate fields. And just like we said before, we concluded you can't be kind of make a kinyan in one thing you can't make a chazak in one thing and be kind of second. Take. What if he didn't make a chazak at all in field A? The only kinyan he made was in the meitzer. Mao. High meitzer after the aru. Maybe making a chazaka in the meitzer is even better than making chazaka in one of the two fields. Just like when you kaina an animal, the way you kaina is with mesira, by holding on to the reins and causing the animal to move. So when you make a kinyan in the border, that applies to the both fields. That's what controls. That's like the handle of the two fields, or afsar is the reins of the two fields. Oh no. We say each one is separate, and all you made a kinyan in was in the border, but you didn't get anything else. Teku. Okay. This is also a teku, and we're going to leave it off over here. Be'ez Hashem, we'll stop here. Hopefully, I would like to learn on Matzah Shabbos, but it's very likely we won't learn on Sunday, so hopefully that's the plan.